So the famous painter Salvador Dali once said, "Those who do not want to imitate anything produce nothing." But when it comes to watches, there's a spectrum of acceptability. On the bottom, we have replicas, which are like wholesale attempts to pass itself off as the genuine article. Then we have homage watches, where the name on the dial might be different, but can sometimes look identical to their host. And then we have Smiths, which is a 170-year-old brand that died, was resurrected to produce an homage to a Rolex that hasn't been made in 30 years. Got it? Good. Hey guys, I'm Max and this is Watch Crunch. Hey, do you talk about your watch like it's your boyfriend or girlfriend? Like how you're bonding with her, or if you're still in the honeymoon phase? Well, you belong on watchcrunch.com. This is a discussion platform where thousands of your watch friends are already on, where we're building a positive space for talking watches. So come check it out. So I've seen the Smiths Everest around for a few years now in different stages of its evolution, and I must say I hadn't been interested in this watch up until very recently. The early models didn't look very refined to me, and it wasn't until I saw a picture of this Aventurine Silver Jubilee edition that made me sit up in my chair. Okay, so the Everest is really an homage of a Rolex Explorer 1016. Produced from 1959 to 1989, the 1016 was considered the first Rolex Explorer in its modern form with the iconic 3, 6, and 9 dial. But trying to buy a 1016 today is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, if that needle costs tens of thousands of dollars and has likely been Frankenstein to death. But still, when I see a picture of a nice 1016, my pulse quickens just a little bit. Now transplant that 1016 dial into a modern body and you get the Smiths Everest. Now, of course, the big difference between this and the Explorer 114270 that I have here are the elements on the dial. Like the 1016, they're printed in the Everest as opposed to applied in the Explorer. Now, some prefer this as it has a more vintage look, and others prefer the applied indices as they look more modern. There's an argument to be had on both sides. But what we do know is that the Superluminova on this 20-plus-year-old Rolex holds up just as well as that of the brand new Smiths. Note that the 3, 6, and 9 indices are not loomed in this older version of the Explorer. Now this particular variant is a special edition with an aventurine dial. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Aventurine is a quartz stone that's polished such that the flakes inside reflect the light like stars in the night sky. And after seeing my first aventurine watch in real life, I didn't realize that a glitter-crazed 14-year-old girl lived inside me. The flakes give the dial more depth and visual interest and further adds to the perception of quality. We get the classic Rolex Mercedes hands with the faceted sword-style minute hand and a lollipop second hand. And the word Everest is subtly printed in gray at the 6. The Smith logo is at 12, and some find the use of the crown just a bit too Rolex-like, but I just found out that even back in the 40s, this was the old Smith logo. So I guess we'll give it a pass. Now the word deluxe printed below that actually references something historic. The Smith Deluxe was a watch that actually went to the top of Mount Everest. See, it wasn't just Rolex, but also Smiths, an English watchmaker founded in 1851 that had the foresight to supply wristwatches to Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. Some even contend that it was the Smith that was on Hillary's wrist when he first arrived at the top of the world. Alas, history is written by the victors, and Rolex became the world's largest watch brand with its relentless marketing. And as much as Smiths famously supplied their W10s to the British military in the 60s and 70s, the company eventually faded into obscurity during the quartz crisis. Guys, please drop a like for this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you for supporting the channel so we can keep doing what we're doing. So the brand Smiths now belongs to one Eddie Platt, who is the owner of the website timefactors.com. And when buying a micro brand, which I still feel like this is the best way to describe Smiths in its current form, the fear is always about build quality. Because you see, micros don't control their own manufacturing, and build quality is typically not up to the level of luxury brands. But out of the box, I was genuinely surprised by how just incredibly solid this watch felt. There's a nice heft to it. There's no rattles or shakes coming from either the case nor the Jubilee bracelet. It's not quite like modern Rolex solid, but compared to this 114270, it's every bit as sturdy. Now the regular edition comes with an oyster bracelet, which I haven't tried, but I imagine is just as good. The clasp here is a dual button deployant, which feels secure and features a nice brushed center section with the Smiths logo. Now one complaint is that the edge of the clasp sticks out just enough to be annoying. But the case is well executed with a polished bezel and brushed lugs, though the transition between the surfaces isn't quite as sharp as the Rolex, and when looking at the mid case, it doesn't quite achieve the same complex curves of the real oyster case. But we do get a vintage nod in the drilled lug holes, making strap changes a breeze. Now small details haven't been overlooked here with the inclusion of a signed crown, as well as anti-reflective coating under the sapphire. Driving the Everest is the Miyota 9039, which is a hacking and hand winding automatic that beats at 28.8 and runs between -10 and +30 a day. Though more than adequate for the job, it's truly pedestrian compared to the renowned Rolex caliber 3130 found in the Explorer. This movement boasts a free-sprung balance, bidirectional rotor winding, and COSC certified accuracy within a handful of seconds a day. A surprise though, given such different innards, is that the two watches have identical dimensions. A vintage appropriate 36mm wide with a very reasonable thickness at under 12. And for that reason, the Everest on the wrist wears every bit as well as the Explorer, which is to say that it's inconspicuous while still feeling substantial, owing to its weight and solid construction. And dare I say, this is like the only $500 watch in recent memory for me that actually borders on feeling luxurious. So coming back to the original question, is the Smiths Everest a viable alternative to the Rolex Explorer? Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. In principle, it certainly isn't. This is kind of a confused watch. Instead of being modeled after the Smith that actually went to Everest, it's an unabashed homage to its more successful competitor. Being powered by a Japanese movement, and I've heard a number of not so nice stories about the purchasing process as well as customer service. But in practice, when you actually get your hands on one of these, all of these qualms go right out the window. You get all the vibes of wearing arguably the most historically famous Rolex, the fit and finish of a superb modern piece, with all the liberations from fear of scratching up what is but a $500 watch. Watches at this price point are usually fun, but this one is actually good. But what do you think about homage watches? And Ben from Ben's Watch Club is an authority on the topic, and he does post frequently on watchcrunch.com, so come join the conversation. As always, great chat, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.